Hello, hello. Welcome, friends. This is Chris, and evil is the destruction of freedom, just like it was last week and the week before. Thanks for joining me today. Today's show is live. I'm here in the studio, so I'll try to do my best to keep up with the chat. But whoever's here, thanks for joining us. I really always am happy to see the wonderful people that show up to check out the End Evil podcast. We're all about trying to make a better world for ourselves, for our future, for our grandchildren, for all of humanity. That's going to require more attention to detail in terms of how we treat every moment and what decisions we make. And that basically all comes down to our understanding of what's right and what's wrong. So I got something new I just wanted to share with you guys real quick. I'll show you a little I just had it displayed on the screen, my little QR code there, because if you go to chrisjansen.com, you can sign up to do consultation with me. What I've started doing is I've had several people I've been meeting with for a long time, and I really find that when someone is able to speak clearly about the problems they're facing or the obstacles they're facing or a plan, something they're really excited about, if I can just listen to them and give them some time and some space, all of a sudden they gain this clarity. And, I'm always one who has a little piece of advice or an idea if someone so chooses. But the most valuable thing of all is just having someone who will listen to you from your heart. So for the first few people that sign up for consultation with me, I'll give you the first meeting for free. And then after that, it'll be a paid session. So I look forward to seeing some of you in consultation in the future, if you so choose. Otherwise, please share this show with others. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't. That helps the show a lot. Make a comment and make a donate. You can make a donation as well from the endevil.life website. There's a donate tab, and you could find my links on there as well. So yeah, that's the introduction. With no more ado, I'm happy to share with you, friends. Hey, what's up, Rick? Thanks for coming. My wonderful friends are here, Derek Bartolacelli and Leslie Powers.
Hello, hello.
Sweetheart, thanks for joining us, guys.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, bonjour, bonjour. How's it going? Crip Rick was cracking, and then one Great Work Warriors.
Yeah, hello, everybody.
Yes, and we also want to remind people to check out the one that's showing up backwards. I guess your video's not mirrored, but
Yeah, how do you
that's
do
just
that?
mine. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so glad you guys could join me. I was looking at your YouTube page, and I was looking back, and it looks like it's been almost exactly a year,
It's been more.
a little more than a year since you guys started doing the Dissolving the Divide podcast and show. And I'm just so proud of what you guys have accomplished in such a short time, all the wonderful people you've interviewed. And I wanted to just spend this hour kind of learning about how the experience has been for you guys and what we could share with our audience from what's been learned from the Dissolving the Divide and what's it all about. So let's start kind of from the beginning. Derek, as I recall, it was your idea, right? You want to tell me how this idea blossomed and bloomed and became the wonderful thing it is?
Sure, but I would like to allow ladies first. If Leslie,
Sure. Okay, so it's funny. I think that our minds were working in similar paths around noticing, or being maybe perturbed by all of the divisions in the world and the polarizations. And so I had been thinking about doing maybe a presentation for Funnel or something on dialectics and, kind of like overcoming polarization and so forth. But I hadn't really gotten very far on it. And then Derek happened to be in California. It was like November, like 2 Novembers ago. And he came and visited Chris and I up in Reading and ended up hanging out, being a friend of mine, move. I don't know. It's just like this series of like random things. And he was just like, I'm thinking about this and wanting to do something on, divisions and polarities and dialectics or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about that too. And he was just like, hey, what about doing a show? It was just very like spontaneous and in this conversation in a storage unit like facility that we had the conversation, I think. And then we were just like, yeah, let's talk about it, let's do it. And it turned into a show. It was just like, oh. What is your memory, Derek?
All right, let's get down to brass tacks, because I remember back in the day when we first met up in the Bay, and it was really cool to realize that Chris is from the Zay. That 808s ain't that great? Man, I can relate.
I was 408.
Were you practicing that rhyme?
Not at all. It's just I'm inspired by so much shit. I've been in this YouTubery game, whatever the hell people want to call it, for a dozen years. And yes, I've observed a lot over the years, and like cattails and in reference, we first met for the first time, all three of us, pretty much the same day.
Yeah.
We were at a salsa convention in South San Francisco. That was dope. I swooped up Chris. We went and did a cool little ballad out in Half Moon Bay. We even did a video about that. It's on Chris' channel and mine.
Old dip.
Yeah. And I really truly remember it was the next day. We had a wonderful little brunch with your friends, and then we just walked around that hotel complex. It was really cool, a little bayside walk. And I was really intrigued and surprised to hear you guys have a really cool community up in Reading and this and that. And for me, I was trying to just find my grounding, because I was really at a loss of, leaving France, trying to be with my ex-girlfriend in Canada, got denied at the border, yada, yada. And then, just trying to find, my tribe and all that stuff. And I was really fortunate to meet up with y'all, and obviously learned about you guys. We've been friends on Facebook for a while through mutual friends, but a lot of people just don't meet up with each other in person in real fucking life.
Yeah.
And I feel like I had just the opportunity to do such, so I did. And you were the first two pretty much that I met. But I remember we had conversations, and even close people in your inner circles that are more freedom inclined, there's still issues going on, and a lot of it seems to stem from relationship issues and stuff, and not just being on the same page, not understanding certain core values or principles, if you will.
Yeah.
So all these things compounded with stuff that was on my mind already and stuff, and having fallen outs with certain people as well. And where the fuck is the unity within the goddamn fucking community? Sometimes, because you can't really spell that without the other, but we're supposed to be evolved, enlightened and all this stuff, yet we're still caught up on a lot of hangups between ourselves and relationships or friendships or whatever, or just phony Facebook friendships, and we're gonna block this person, because they don't agree with blah 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 XYZ, whatever. It's dude, are we not fucking adults? What happened to that shit?
Yeah, true. Yeah, but you had been thinking about the idea. What brought the idea to your mind?
Yeah, because I've been thinking
like Rick.
And Leslie, I wanted to do some kind of video presentation as well. I just thought that, taking a fresh approach to podcasts or making videos or having interviews and stuff, there's not a whole lot of people really, trying to strike at the roots of these fucking divide and conquer tactics, really, and just addressing it one by one.
Yeah.
Picking them out like little, inverted acupuncture that's on the human body around the planet, man. What the hell?
Yeah. I think what you said about getting to the root of it is what we're trying to do. So we're not just talking about like the differences of opinion, back and forth, that seems pretty useless. It's like, what is really that thing that can help unify, on these topics? What is the bottom line, of
Yeah,
dissolving the
because
divide?
yeah, those common grounds. I mean, like, hanging out, visiting you, Chris, and Brandon Spencer and Mario West. Because we've been asking around. You got that natural law? And that is such, it's something that's supposed to be within us, these codes of consciousness, and they really just have to be explored, activated, experienced, and all these things. And people just don't even understand the fucking terms sometimes. And even people that are in certain communities don't really fully embody or have these things integrated within their psyche, at least, and just operating from that, their behaviors, their actions, and their words, they correspond, they're in alignment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really strikes me. I remember I did that presentation, Humanity's Most Powerful Weapon. And partly because, I came from a background of spending some time doing some team challenge, teams ropes course, and team building kind of facilitation. And it was one of the most amazing things I did when I was in my travels, when I was, 18, 19, 20, in those ages. I think 22, 23, I was out there teaching, um, facilitating these ropes course things. And I was seeing that people could work together, and I see a lot of other examples in society. And, when people talk about anarchy, it's like, it scares the average individual, because basically what we're saying is that we don't want government in the form it exists now. And I think for most people's mindset, like, they think government is synonymous with organization, and they're thinking, well, without organization, it's just going to be a world of chaos. And that's normally where that term anarchy gets all confused to mean chaos, when in fact it means not having rulers. But even in the case of not having rulers, we're still going to need some kind of process of organization. There's going to be a lot of chaotic possibilities between here and there. So, what does that prompt in your thought process, and how does that tie into dissolving the divide? I'll go ahead and ladies first. I'll send it to Leslie first. Oh, your mic turned off.
I'm muted. Sorry. Um, yes, I think that people have fear, right, about what's going on in the world. And most people like know that there's a bunch of bullshit going on, but they don't have the framework to understand like the big picture of what's going on. And because what's really going on is really outside of the paradigm of their cultural experience, or what they've been told or programmed, so to speak, to believe is true. And I think from this, like a certain lack of knowledge and their own fears, and lack of self-awareness too, end up reacting in ways, or finding topics that strike a chord, and then they'll like pick a side, or make an opinion that they think is right and best, but in the end, it's a reactive kind of a stance, and then they end up unconsciously perpetuating more conflict and more chaos, in the world. So I think that there's beliefs that people have, there are fears, there's comfort levels and security concerns. People don't want to lose that. And a lack of their own lack of knowledge about self, right? And not having good understanding of their own psyche and where they're coming from. And so I think all of that adds up to people being afraid of the world in a way, and feeling powerless, or feeling like they have to grab onto something, and make that the thing. But usually all of that is about the external world, right? It's about the stuff that already exists in the politics and the causes that are being, promoted through the media, and that's really fueling a lot of that fear and that misunderstanding of where the power really lies, which ultimately it always comes back to internal power, right?
Yeah.
External.
What about that locus of control?
Yeah, that
Just
too.
things like that really was like, oh
Mhm.
wow, yeah, like I want to work with this woman, Leslie, or and create
Mhm.
this stuff, like
Mhm.
delving into your works, and so that's
Yeah.
on that quite a bit.
Yeah, and what the locus of control, it's a psychological term that basically refers to where we see the power lies. Do we see that the things that are going on in the world are externally caused, and that the solution is external, and that we have to vote the right person in, or we have to, you know, put this person in jail, or whatever. It's all external focused, and the more that we're looking externally, the more we're grasping almost often at random things, that aren't really solutions. And so the internal locus of control is where we recognize that we have a lot of power in ourselves, the potential to create our world, and to manage our own thoughts, feelings, and actions in such a way that's harmonious and principle based, and and that there's a lot that can happen from within. Not that we can control everything, but there's that saying, really understanding, if we understand the root of the problem, then we will know where to put our effort in the solution.
You have anything you wanted to add to that, Derek?
Yeah, sure. Just and I understand people just don't. We've never really been taught or shown outside of independent literature. It seems of a world without government or world with something described other than without a different fucking name. That doesn't mean mind control.
Mhm.
But at the same time, and this is why I love having all these guests that we've had. With John Rowland, he speaks about like, well, just observe the word mind control. Are we really in control of our own first and foremost, like the first hermetic principle type of shit? So that really stems to what Leslie's talking about with the inner control, the
The
locus,
internal locus of control. Mhm.
right? And a lot of people just were programmed to kind of delegate that out to governmental bodies and stuff. And yeah, there's so much more societal entanglement besides just fucking government. There's corporate, oligarchic, psychopathic mother effers. They have more power than politicians and government. Have you seen Google or Twitter or other entities able to censor presidents and shit like that? So I don't know. There's a lot more people would need to consider, and like, what kind of world do you actually see yourself living in the future if there was no government? How are you going to contribute to that? How much more augmented responsibility does it take for each individual to build that proper hermetically sealed society, as I like to say, where we do have certain rules and regulations to go by, like natural law, understanding the true cosmic balance and equality of things. And yes, we do have to use that double-edged sword of truth.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And I think, that's a powerful symbol, right? The sword is in the hand, there's power there. And and I this when you have this mindset of, okay, an internal locus of control, it's like, what can I do? And I have a responsibility to do something. And I think a lot of people want to do something. People want to feel purposeful and be of service in the world. And it's from well-intended motivation, but often lost in the solution. And so so I think part of what we're offering is some framework for different ways to think about what you can do, right? And if we like David Rodriguez coming on and talking about the school system, and that there's really a better alternative, to the public school system, to the mainstream school system, and to help normalize the idea of an unschooling. Same Dana Martin, and looking at attachment parenting and unschooling, and just opening people's minds to alternative ways of bringing education to our children, and how empowering that is for our world, to detach, so sometimes the power that we have is in the detachment, from certain systems that are perpetuating division, right? So what is it that's dividing people? Well, there's so many examples within the government system, the medical system, the school system, the political system, there's so many examples.
And then on a more personal level, okay, we have as within, so without. We have the divide inside of ourselves. And, we all talk about self-work. And, what comes to my mind right now is emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And even like with people that we love and that we're really close to, I've found that, living in the same house with anyone can be difficult. We all have our like personal boundaries and such, and it's hard. It's hard to get along with people. Is that a result of our modern society? Is that a result of evil influences? Is that a result of our choices? Well, I'm sure you guys would say it's a little of each.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'd like to get back to that, personal aspect. I just wanted to touch on it but I think one thing that really brought you guys together with dissolving the divide is noticing there's this, what we call freedom community. It's this loose term, but we see a lot of argumentation and disagreements going on that seem kind of like outside the point. And so I was hoping you guys could talk a little bit about that, some of the things we see on social media and the videos we watch, and the way you're trying to differentiate the work you're doing, which is similar to my process, to try to dissolve these ridiculous divides, even within those who call themselves freedom community or anarchists or etc. Yeah, like what are some of those divides, and what are some ideas you've come across in your
So you want me to first, you want us to first address the freedom community divisions?
Yeah, that's
and
kind of
things?
where I was
Yeah.
thinking, the thing that really highlighted, that really brought you guys together on this,
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it certainly was one aspect, and in seeing people within our own community, have conflicts or misunderstandings, and it really highlights that this is hard work, right? Like, we've all been traumatized, we've all been let down, we've been screwed over. There's so many ways that all of us are coming like wounded soldiers, like with our own baggage, and we're all working on ourselves, and there's going to be differing degrees of self-awareness and actualization, right? But I think that, so what happens is sometimes, people do get triggered. It's bound to happen, right? And we're all passionate people, and we're all fiercely independent. We don't really get into this real conversation and as teachers of natural law without like really being independent people. And so we run into those clashes now and then in various ways. I think just it's inevitable in any group of people, right? And so we have an opportunity within our own community to embody the work of self-growth, and and continue the inner work. So what I kind of say with like our podcast is it seems to, in the end, always come back to doing your inner work, right? It always comes back. That is the first level, is going within, doing, if you want to call it shadow work or, deep introspection, developing self-knowledge, healing traumas, healing wounds, learning about your triggers, recognizing how you are responding or reacting in conversation. What are your biases? What are your expectations? There's so many aspects, right? And we have this inside ourselves as individuals, but then we face it with each other. And the skills to communicate and solve problems and are really necessary at the very root of solving any conflict or division. And it's not just, why would we think that our community is going to be different, right? We're just people. And so and I've witnessed, people come back around too and repair and people embracing each other again. And I think that ultimately, like is that we unite on the vision, on the ultimate passion of finding the truth and sharing information that we think is helpful for the world. And that is ultimately, I think, one of the unifying things for any relationship, whether it's, a couple. Mark Passio has recently talked about, the genuine relationship is not just about, person to person, but person to person in the context of facing the same direction, being united on principles and vision, and both valuing the truth. So I think that that's true for friends. It's true for communities, any group of people that's working together for a common goal. Maybe it's to build a community, right? To do communal farming or get some land. And, if those are grand ideas, but if you don't have the inner work and the relational work done, you're not working on it actively, there's going to be more and more divides and conflicts.
Yeah, and what do our good friends and family, the folks at Levolution, say? Love thyself to know thyself. And if you don't have that love for yourself, you ain't got that really to give to others.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you call them your sisters or brothers and all that. But yo, Rick, I hear what you're saying. I see your comments. And dude, I'm not like any kind of tarot expert. I'm an enthusiast, if you will. I can't give you a good shuffle during this live stream to, pull a card for you, but maybe I'll do one just for the sake of it. But, going to your other comment regarding, everyone being on different levels. Yeah, everyone should really recognize that we're all on different levels. Our paths may differ for whatever, life path reason. We're all in certain, different planetary templates as far as, our birth charts and all this jazz. Which, by the way, Leslie and I both got that Libra ascendant, so it makes sense that we,
The scales. Yeah.
combine forces with that. But yeah, it all comes back to like, okay, so why do certain people have a lack of compassion, a lack of patience, or whatever regarding how they respond to other people, especially online? And just, y'all are older than me. We're old school. We've been around before the fucking internet was really a thing, right? And what have we noticed, like, especially just like in the 90s? All of a sudden, people can pop off at the top of the lip without repercussions and talk shit on the internet like it was, newest thing since sliced bread or some, I don't know. So people are getting away with, verbal slaughtering, if you will, just because, they can go off on any kind of ad hominem attacks and not really get, beat up for it like they would in the old days or whatever, and that's not to say like we got to beat people up just because they say something bad, but you just see a lot more discord and a lot less humanity behind certain exchanges of words on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And just realizing, over the past couple of years, like, wow, AI and transhumanism is like knocking at our goddamn doors. Like, what the hell is going on? So
Yeah.
we cannot lose that humanity even more than we have already, through, simple conversation. Like, what the hell? Like, are you able to speak about that universal, cosmic law principles of things in a composed manner, simplistic? You can break it down to fucking virtually anyone that you come across on the streets. Or are you going to be triggered because they're getting impatient because they don't understand it off the first, what I mean? Like, come on. And like, there's so much psychological operations going on that have people pulled this way and that, and it's really hard and it muddies up the water. Like Chris,
Yeah.
on Great Work Warrior chats along for a while, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Good
absolutely.
points. Derek, I want to say a few things from what you're saying. One is like the social media influence and the way that I think that media in general really promotes the conflicts. Like that's what gets views. Let's get somebody, kind of losing their shit, and throwing something, or like calling somebody names, like the reality TV version. It's like really exploits conflict because it's fun to watch, and it's like cheap laughs at other people's expenses, and that's become very normalized and popular, which is weird to me. And I think that that's part of our challenge, really, is that talking about some of these topics is kind of may seem boring, because we're like, but it's we're up against that. I'll point that out. And then I think also what we're up against is just the general increase in stress in the world and people's lives, and that people are very distracted by their stressors. And so, when you're stretched thin and you're living in a city and you're sitting in traffic and, I mean, you're getting frustrated with the drivers next to you. And, there's just so many frustrations. And I think that people are listening to podcasts. That's a good thing. So start listening to Dissolving the Divide as on your commutes and so forth. But, it's, we have a lot to regulate in ourselves, right? Just to have the bandwidth to think about these bigger issues and to put our own energy towards solutions.
Yeah, Leslie, real quick, just to state that, our channel, our first out the gates, like that's what we really tried to establish as our foundation of, hey, we got to start from within first and foremost, really understand the internal divisions and things that are not aligned. Certain people are operating on whatever contradictions or falsehoods and yada yada, right?
Yeah.
So word up
Yeah.
to Brandon Spencer, Mario West, and Nate Cap,
Yeah. Some really
color.
good starters. We had
Yeah.
Rodney out there doing some astrology too. So we're
Yeah.
getting a big broader perspective, the cosmic perspective as well, and how that plays out. So those are some really good ones. Rick has a comment here that I wanted to reflect off of. I notice many will adopt an ideology or latest popular movement without actually knowing the roots of what they are supporting or defending. I think that's a really important comment. And that we end up, and I look out in the world and the way people are arguing, they're arguing so passionately over something that they believe is so true. And yet, without knowing that what they're supporting or fighting for is actually a manipulation. They're actually being manipulated in a sense through their own passion for it, and that chaos magic out there of and problem reaction solution is really playing out at so many levels that people are getting tricked and don't see it. Where there are problems created often by governments, and then all this chaos, these problems happen, and people are like, "Oh my God!"
So Hegelian, right?
Yeah, the Hegelian dialectic and being manipulated, and people are then becoming in argumentative with each other because of this. It's got to be the Democrat, or it's got to be the Republican, or it's got to be Israel, or it's got to be Palestine, or when it's really neither. It's been a fabricated disagreement almost. Many times it's been formulated for years, where people are so entrenched in their point of view that they can't see a broader perspective, or see how their energy is being siphoned, or they're being used for a particular agenda that's not benefiting any of us or them, right? And so if people can really look at their belief systems and just open their mind to the possibility that there's more going on, and ask questions and be open to new information, can make a world of difference.
Yeah, so many subjects out there just totally sidetrack the main issue. Really struck me, like you said, Derek, online, because people are speaking through an avatar. It removes that accountability, that responsibility you'd have if you're face to face with somebody. And that's also true of the structures, whether it's governmental structure or corporate structure. We get so far removed from decision making that it sort of just becomes out there. It's not really my problem type of thing. Nothing I can do anyway. All I can do is just go and put my ballot in the ballot box. And those of us that have firmly decided that that's not even an honorable right action, are a lot of us have come together online. But then even within those people, we find that, like, for instance, flat earth people are going back and forth, just straight up fighting, and the people that don't want to hear a bit of it are just like, nope, it's all stupid, every bit of it's dumb. And the people that have found some things in it that are interesting and want to share are offended. And they, that's like one of those divides that's out there. And I've always seen it the whole time. I'm like, yeah, but is that really the point here? Because, okay, we could argue about sexism. How big of a deal is sexism right now? And that's another one of those. People want to argue about their sexuality. And then we got like the fight between the vegans and the meat eaters, and throwing volleys back and forth there. Oh, you damn meat eaters! You obviously don't know anything about natural law, otherwise you wouldn't be eating meat, right? And then that's their main point they want to drive home more than anything. And I wonder how much of this is actual people and how much of it is kind of instigated by a greater evil that's paying money for people to, support these fights. We know the social media algorithms are keeping all these disagreements going. But all in all, it's like united we fall, divided we fall, right? United we stand. So maybe you guys can help steer. Like, I'm bringing up some of these things that I know are hot button issues. How do we help people not get stuck in them? How do we lead, guide, encourage some positive responsibility in the right direction?
Ooh. I'll say real quick if you don't mind, Leslie, unless you want
Hey,
to.
Fred.
Yeah, Fred.
Yeah,
Fred
Sarah's
was
here
cracking me up.
too, and
Hey, Sarah.
Andy.
Yeah,
Welcome,
like,
guys. Thanks for joining us.
we understand there are certain priorities, there are certain requirements to establish levels of freedom and just well-being, proper states of mind, and all these things. I think people just might lose sight of that and might need some reminders of these things and not get so sidetracked into distractive dialectics that are causing discord and division. So, yeah, we can see certain common grounds through all these things, and it's just good to kind of just lean on those things like cosmic law, like natural law. But yeah, even within these communities, yeah, I mean, like, I understand, like, cause no, do no harm to any sentient being or anything, like, right? But are these people really in tune with animism? Do they understand people? Everyone else has a different, blood type or biological makeup and all these things. Like, I have friends that had miscarriages because they were on a vegan diet or had health issues and this and that. It just so, like, if they don't fit, don't fucking force it. Like, why are we trying to create these standards that are unrealistic, and it's not necessarily in order of what needs to be prioritized.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that we're in a complicated state right now in our world, right? As individuals and as a collective. There's a lot of water under the bridge, a lot of damage done. Our physiology has been corrupted in some ways, And so when we're talking about like natural law, we're talking about the value of each individual. Every individual has value. Every individual has equal rights. Our rights are the same, and that we have a right to make choices for ourselves as long as we're not causing harm. So, for example, let's say on the vegan issue, when Mark Passio did his in his podcast, he talked about the morality of veganism, of eating meat, eating animals, killing animals. And I had been like, kind of like, I'm not sure, for a long time. I'm like, and then he made sense to me from a moral standpoint, okay? From a very kind of clear delineation of morality, that makes sense that animals are sentient beings. We don't have the right to take a life, right? So I understand that. And yet, what Derek said, where are we now? And is it realistic? Like for any of these issues, that we know are right or wrong, like government is slavery, like paying taxes is wrong. We all have a choice point as to how we're going to maneuver this dilemma and the dissonance that we're living in. So that decision is an individual. How we do that is an individual matter. Every individual has to face that process within themselves to do the inventory of your own life. Where are you in relationship to, corruption? Where are you in relationship to government? Do you work for the government? Do you get paid through the government? Things like that. Are you paying taxes? How entangled are you with this immoral structure? Are you eating meat? Are you, all of these questions? There's a whole range of them. And it's none of us are 100% out because it's pretty impossible, okay? Because we're all in a slavery system. And the more you try to get out, the more you realize where you're being held captive. And so some people might be able to do vegan like this, but another person with the very best intentions may end up with some deep complications that make it not a quick or easy transition. Like Mark Passio himself said, that was the last kind of area and the hardest one for him. He did it over years, right? And so, and the same, like I would say, if somebody's pointing a finger that you're not being moral enough because you eat meat, I guess it's only fair to say, well, let's see where you're being immoral too, because there's something, all right? None of us are completely out. And I think that it's not helpful to point fingers and judge and blame someone else because you have an issue that you particularly are passionate about and try to change somebody else's, personal decisions about how they're approaching this complicated like transition, right?
Ooh, can I respond real quick to some of the comments?
Yeah.
Because like I'm gonna tie in a couple. What's up, Libercast?
Good comment.
Green Gas. Dans la place, mon ami. Quoi de neuf, les gars? Qu'est-ce qu'il y a? Oh, sorry. Excuse my French, right? But so yeah, like what he's saying is we we're victims of this outputted reality, and just like, what are you talking about, Leslie, in, the build up to where we are right now? Yeah, people are on different levels with different degrees of trauma and within their biological makeup, emotional and mental, all these things. This is a result of thousands and millions of years. We have to really take things back. If you are, like people in the truth community talking about, like, we can't be fucking going halfway. We have to go all the fucking way. So what does that entail exactly? Really understanding our true origins, where we come from, our proper lineage, our blood codex, our, soul template, and all these things, and the origins of humanity. Why do we have all this, dormant DNA, and like less potential of our brain function and all these things? Because apparently our ancestors back in times of Atlantis, they didn't have the same biological makeup as we do. They didn't have to eat, other food sources, especially like animals and shit like that, to sustain their life force energy. They had that shit perpetuating within their heart core center, because they could see things properly through that first eye. But we can digress on that. But yeah, so yeah, goes into epigenetics and stuff, and like really revitalizing that. And we have to go through certain initiatory processes, like shadow work, like really going into all the things that we've been duped about, all the falsehoods that we lived through, all the bullshit ego attachments, and the wrongs that we've done. Where is the true cosmic apology coming from people on this fucking path? Like, straight the fuck up. Sometimes I don't see that within people, just like reading their energy in their body language and all these things. And just, you see certain patterns of behaviors of people year in, year out. We've all been kind of shooting the shit sometimes online on Facebook and this and that. There's plenty of shit posters out there on Facebook, posting up them dank ass memes, and I appreciate y'all, this and that. We can do a little bit better than that, and just, I see a little too much fun being poked at, the victims of all these, mind control tactics and divide and conquer stuff. Like, where's the line, or where's the hand extended to be like, hey man, you fell for some shit, let me show you what's up over here. With that compassionate approach. Not this like, oh, I know more than you, will go fuck yourself or whatever the
fuck. Promoting more guilt and shame and attacking isn't going to help people undefend, right? What the things inside them, right? And we all have like we're all entering this world with a totally unique template, right? Based on our ancestors, lives and their DNA and our soul, agreements, like these complicated things that we walk into, and we're all very individual. And so that individuality needs to be respected. And if we are a person who is, making our best effort to detangle this complicated web that we're in, I think that that's good, right? So, and it's a complicated web, and it's sometimes hard to know where to start or how to even get out of it, right? And we come in with different karma and different bodies and different traumas and different mind viruses and beliefs, that it's a process that takes time and diligence and focus. And we're going to be at different places from each other at different times. So that compassion, I think, is really important, especially if we want to be a team on some level and unify to work together against the things that are really threatening us as a humanity, the tyranny and the stealing of our freedom and the disrespect for our rights. I mean, we are really not being generally, as a humanity, being treated like we're very valuable or important, but we are. And just starting with knowing that and recognizing that is like can open the door, and then reaching out to gain knowledge and figuring out, okay, what is my strategy, individually, what is my strategy and where can I make some big changes, on a more quick way, and what are some of the slower processes. And I think that recognizing that, we're all going to die imperfect. Okay. None of us are going to be like perfected humans when we leave this world. But if we can look back on our lives and say, I did my damn best, and that we can support each other in that effort, I think that's a lot better than fighting with each other over like whether the earth is round or flat or whether you eat a steak now and then,
Yeah, thanks for, clearing some of that up. And I'm glad we opened the door with some of the more difficult topics, because I think part of the game is just opening that door and being real about them and being like, hey, here's what people are disagreeing about. How important is that? It brings to my mind, I feel like I almost need a little song for this. Chris is the metaphor man, the metaphor man. I always got little metaphors and allegories for everything, but um, like I've always imagined, these movies when there's a big battle going on, right? And like the one side shoots like a volley of arrows, and it's like the whole sky is black with thousands and thousands of arrows, right? So imagine we're the ones in the field, all these arrows are coming, so you got to hold your shields up, right?
yeah.
Now, if we're all together and we're all holding our shields up, we have a pretty powerful shield against this attack. But if we're all separate and spread out on the field and looking in different directions, we might not even. And then, like when you're under attack or when you feel under attack is kind of what you're describing, being overwhelmed with all these problems. I think a lot of people are like, I don't know, there's this problem, there's that problem. How do I know which one to battle? Right.
Mhm.
And so it's like you can't even move your shield long enough to kind of look and see what's going on in the battlefield to see where you
Mm.
should be, because if you move your shield, you're going to be getting hit with arrows, right? And
Yeah.
so, there's this, I feel like there's this a really important thing we need to do is like help people focus. Like, what is the next step literally right now in my
Mm.
life? What should I be focusing on? Because there's arrows everywhere, and nobody's standing together in a good formation to block all these arrows of
Mhm.
evil. So we're constantly getting more and more divided and fractionalized in our thinking. And how do we build this cohesiveness? Where do we start? Like, what is the focus?
Damn, real quick with those arrows. I like that. What you mentioned, Chris.
To the point, right?
Yeah. And one of the logos I was working on with our Dissolve into Divide was an arrow kind of pointing down to kind of, it was symbolic for whatever reasons, but I was like, I don't want to have, weapons of whatever. But, these things are tools regardless. But yeah, like, are we, oh man, you had a really good thing you said about just like being on target. I think there's a comment from Fred, being like bullseye with what
I need your help right
but
now.
having that proper care when we pull back the bow at the same time, if we are gonna strike back at the Empire, whatever. And yeah, I like that, moving as a unit. And like for me, being awake since 2012, I was really I was isolated as fuck out in France. And so I was super excited to be in America whenever I came back to visit or whatever, especially in more recent times, eh? And, just like having maybe over optimistic ideas of, wow, we can like, create like strike forces or like, little teams where we can, team up and have like a group of like even just like 2-3 people who have some free time to just, I don't know, that's like bum rush some of these bullshit echo chambers full of ignorance or whatever, and try to get something get the ball moving in a lot of different directions, in a lot of different ways, because we have a lot of potential to do a lot of amazing things and use our fucking magic that we should have been cultivating from the goddamn fucking get-go if you are really truly on the spiritual path or awakened and all this shit, you know? So yeah, Will Keller, what's up? Happy Ostara, mon ami. First a day of Aries in the place to be. Busting out that first gate, as Rodney would say. Yeah, Leslie would say.
Yeah. Well, Will had a point there about how important it is for the Truth and Freedom movement to do the more. We all need to do more internal work, right? The Truth and Freedom communities really need more internal work, so they're less reactive and acting on better convos like this one. And so that internal work is really important. And I've been thinking, about. Okay, I was thinking about. I really respect Mark Passio's his podcast, starting from the beginning. When you start to look at how he has mapped out this process of opening up the world of what's going on in the world, it's very brilliant. And if I'm not mistaken, I think one of the very first things he starts with is understanding our own brain and how we have a left and a right hemisphere, and that we're biologically actually kind of, I think, set up for this binary kind of experience of left and right, masculine, feminine, these polarities. And it seems that humans have just this automatic, natural tendency to kind of think in all or nothing, or this or that, red or blue, good or bad, and that maybe we have a little bit of biological setup for that. But yet, our capacity through our frontal lobes and this ability to communicate between those two hemispheres really allows us to think in such much more complex ways, right? To see that things aren't just black or white. Things aren't just good or bad, that there are nuances, there's complexities, there's this, it's an exciting, actually, opportunity that we have as humans to think, right? And one of the way that we're programmed. So one of the other things is, we want to understand how our mind works, how our psychology works, and then to evaluate our world views and to question them, and to see that a lot of our worldviews have come from programming, that we are programmable beings, that our worldviews and our opinions and the things that we've just assumed are just the way it is. It's just what people call natural a lot of the times is really an artificial thing that's been overlaid into our existence. But we just are so used to it that it's what we know is just what we do. And so we're challenging that, right? We're challenging that comfort level. And this is a really hard thing, because when you start to challenge your core beliefs, it creates somewhat of a crisis in your life, potentially. It's can like make you wonder if you've been like barking up the wrong tree your whole life, and and when you start to see maybe that you're been involved in things that you actually wish you weren't, because they're connected to wrongdoings, and so it does create an emotional, spiritual crisis on some level. So we're like, hey, let's create a spiritual crisis, just come on, do it, and we wonder why people don't want to. They're like, no, I'm not going to look at that. So it's a hard road, but it's so valuable. And I think that we need to talk more about what the benefits are of doing this hard work. Why should people be doing this? Why not just be closed, put the blinders on, and just do the daily grind?
Well, yeah, I mean, to bring it back around on that point, for me, like, there were some hard realizations on my trail. it's been a while now, and then there's always going to be more realizing and learning about myself. But there's some pretty big, huge things right out in front of us that I want to share with the audience in terms of what can be done in our day to day life. I mean, a lot of the things that people are bringing up. I don't know how many of you have experienced this, but I'm always trying to bring, ever since I was young, conversations back around to morality, spirituality. Why is it all? What's the big picture? And I get this glazed over thing where people immediately usually want to change the subject, and I began calling it sidelining recently. It's like the most difficult thing to look at is the most hardest truth. It's like trying to look right into a flame, or trying to look right at a really bright light. It's like you want to look away, you want to put on sunglasses, you want to kind of avoid it. I get it. I've had to go through this myself too. Even on a daily basis. Even though I've now made doing this great work part of my practice of my daily life and something that I work on day to day, it's still very difficult to not like be angry at all the people that don't get it, for instance, to not have an attitude towards people that are saying things that are divisive and that are doing the opposite of what we're really trying to get at. The core issue I feel like is, what are the worst types of violence being done on Earth right now on this planet is like massive killing and raping of people has been done by government. And that's why we have to keep bringing that up, is that this organized, giving up, submitting ourselves to this authoritarian belief system, whatever belief system, whether it's your religion or your government or your corporation, anything that you're be willing to put aside your personal decision and choice to say, no, that doesn't seem right to me, and do it anyway because it feels good in the moment. Or so you, even if you got to feed your kids, right? Like we have a lot of justification. That seems like a big one. Feeding our kids, don't get me wrong. But, the principle holds true that we got to think about the bigger picture of what's right just because it's right, not because how it works out good for us in the next few moments or days, or even maybe our child's life. We got to think about the big picture and take responsibility for that. So I guess, that's a mouthful, but I kind of summarizing some of the things you guys said and then bouncing it back. But what I really want to ask both of you next is, the hard part is being compassionate. The hard part is caring about people so that they'll actually hear what we're trying to get across is the most important message. The hardest thing to hear, that making our ears ring, that make us want to turn around and make us want to put on the shades and not look at the bright light. What are some of the things in your life? I mean, it'd be great if there's some things in the last year since doing the Dissolving the Divide that have really impressed you, but it doesn't have to be then. I'm curious, in your own personal life, what are some of the things that really actually made you open your eyes, actually made you look at the most difficult things, and maybe sharing with other people will help them on that path as well. Is that a good question? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I know what's so funny about it.
No, I'm laughing at the comments.
Yeah.
Your dog would be snoring in the background.
Right.
Yeah. I was laughing earlier also because you mentioned something about sunglasses or, rose tinted glasses. And it just reminded me of, the whole movie They Live, and how, a lot of us can take on that energy or character of that rowdy Roddy Piper who just wants to force someone to wear the glasses. Hey, just wear these glasses or I'll beat your ass up. You got to see this truth, man, like straight up. Otherwise, I'll fuck you up. Like, y'all remember that movie, They Live, right?
Yeah.
So,
Cornerstone.
I gotta calm down my imagination sometimes. Like, straight up.
We just want to know the joke. That's all.
Yeah. But there's other stuff, Fred, talking about how, like getting through your own schisms first and foremost is a bitch. Yeah. And that is quite that, private journey, as Sarah Cross was talking about. And just what Fred was talking about earlier as well. I saw that, yes, opinions are like assholes. We can all understand that. Everyone has one. But here's the thing. And what's funny is because I was talking about this in a different way with my girlfriend earlier today. of, we're looking at dogs and all that. And, I was telling her, I was like, you know what? I'm kind of jealous because, I don't know why they feel the need to immediately sniff the rear end of other dogs when they meet them. That's like the go-to spot, right? But their olfactory, their nose, it's like 1,000 times better than ours. So we going back to the compassion and really trying to really establish a proper solid foundation of your own compassion for your fucking self first and foremost, right? Because if you ain't got that love for yourself, you can't give it to other people. Same goes with compassion. But we have to understand that we are living in a fallen time matrix. We're cut off from, source to a lot of degrees. We're in 3D, not 4D, not fucking 5D, not 6D, not 7. It doesn't end at 5D, y'all. Anyways, by the way, I got compassion and love for y'all, but holy shit, y'all be trying to do some, new age escapism on that stuff. So the battleground is right here on 3D, mon ami, may we. So we really understand when all things are considered. Do you not have compassion for, people that are suffering? You walk down, anyone on the street walking by, you see someone suffering, like, fuck, that sucks. Like, that can be really oversaturated because we see that all too often, and this is why I think the media just throws us all types of stuff that desensitizes us to so many degrees. We really have to extract ourselves and really come back into our inner temples, as Sarah Cross was talking about, to a good degree, and all this, like, so. And one of the things that I've noticed is that, and Will Keller mentioned that, is on one of his great comments down below, is something about time, and that people just don't have either enough time or just properly make the proper time for themselves to really have the proper introspection, meditation, contemplation, whatever situation. And yeah, what kind of environment are you trying to be placed in? Exactly, whether it be physical or mental, and your state of mind, hermetically sealed shit, right? So yeah, Leslie, you look like you want to say something, or even
I'm in thought. Yeah, I'm thinking. So, damn, I've lost my train of thought. Okay, so
I remember, Leslie, you've always told me about your journey where, like you kind of had this major realization about evil.
yeah, I'm back.
And I feel like that's one of the places where a lot
Yeah,
of people that I talk to or have
yeah,
talked to are still kind of have that blinder on. Like they don't really want to look into the darkness.
yes,
And I
yeah,
get it. Like we don't want to feed the darkness, but people always say that, oh, you're manifesting more bad stuff because
yeah.
you're talking about bad stuff. And it's like,
So I work in mental health. I'm a clinical social worker, and I've worked in a lot of settings, and I do mental health work. And so I've been very aware of individual stories of horrible things that happen to people. Okay, abuse and neglect and to violence and and so I've not been naive in the sense of like bad things happen, but I think that I underestimated how just how intentional, oh gosh, just how horrible it truly is on massive scale. And I did not want to believe that there are really evil people in the world. That I always like, oh, give people the benefit of the doubt. They're just, people are basically good and they're just, ignorant and they're struggling with their own ego. I would have all this like kind of naive rose colored glasses type of explanations, but it was just like nagging at me. And I finally, kind of what really hit home was through, again, listening to Mark Passio and recognizing that the existence of mind control, understanding the programmability of humans, and that there is an agenda. There is, and people don't want to see it. They don't want to believe it. But there is evil in the world, and there it is being brought to our daily lives through our government, essentially, but it's bigger than government, and when you start to recognize that there is intentional evil playing out and that there's psychopaths making decisions that are stealing our freedoms and hurting our children at massive levels, massive scales, that wakes you up. And it really does ultimately for me come down to thinking about children, because children are not really valued. If you look at where are people putting their energy and attention and what's in the news, are really children's well-being really the primary focus and priority? No. And when they are brought up, it's usually a manipulated agenda to get a bill passed or a school thing or whatever, you know. And so we do need to be like in the spirit of the Native Americans, thinking 7 generations ahead. And if, you know, that is the reason to look up off your phone screen and think really deeply, think about what's going on in the world and open your eyes to all of the ways that our lives are being encroached upon, and that children are in a bad shape. Okay. And then recently I've been looking up some statistics, and you know, the suicide rates have gone up tremendously. They've increased by 36% between 2000 and 2021. Suicide accounted for over 48,000 deaths in 2021, which is approximately 1 death in every 10 minutes. And I think that's the US, as this were CDC. I think they're US statistics. And the rates of mental illness, of depression and anxiety, it's like at least a quarter of our population is struggling with diagnosable anxiety or depression. Okay. And these numbers are increasing. So our condition as humans is not well. We're not well. And so why is that? Don't we want to know? Don't we want to understand? And not blame an individual for their own depression, you know, and just think it's something weird within them. They're people in a context. We are people in situations. And developing the systems viewpoint, I think, is a key. Really being able to see the interconnections, you know, and the correspondences is the thing that can open your eyes, and to care, like to look at statistics and to realize how really ill our world is becoming should wake people up to do something, to be asking why. Why is this, and what can we do about it? What is and every individual can do something, whether it's, you know, detaching yourself from, you know, a place you shop, you know, or deciding you're going to do some homeschooling for your child, you know, studying alternative, you know, ways to, you know, make your own products rather than poisonous ones. There's all sorts of things you can do. And then I think, like we were talking before, what is the priority, you know, and it may be different for different individuals where they start to tackle. But ultimately, we are all heading towards greater and greater enslavement. And that's the future for our children. If we, as in large numbers, don't do something different, our children are going to like the slaughterhouse. And my oldest daughter, just sent me an app. We were talking about it right before the show about how much anxiety there is now in young children since when they're on the social media platforms. So, you know, that especially for girls, that there's some real measurable impacts on their mental health, on their self-esteem, on their levels of anxiety. And I think kids are committing suicide at younger ages. So if we don't like think that's important, and we're just going to decide, like, you know, what reality TV show we're going to watch, or, you know, I don't know, well, we're in trouble. So let's wake up here and focus on the real issue. If we don't do it, you know, who will? Right? What are we waiting for?
Well said, Leslie. It's beautiful. And you know, as people that I mean, I forgot who, someone in our comments had this really neat comment. Oh, here it was, decentralized mind control. He said, or she, I don't know, what if the battle between good and evil is so close that the exponential effect of one person's will is critical, and not making the effort results in humanity destroying itself?
That's a great comment.
Yeah, I really like that, because I think The key is recognizing that every choice does matter. And
Yes.
that's really what's at the crux of this whole thing. I've been making some cool little YouTube videos recently trying to point out that in different ways, life, our experience here, this is an amazing relationship that we're having with reality, with our creator. And this whole thing that we're in, it's alive. It's a living thing that's trying to communicate something to us. And at the core base of that, the most important facet of that is what we're calling natural law or universal law or cosmic law. And basically, this is that there's a law in effect. It's not something we created as humans. It's not something we dreamed up. It's something that's bound to what we are. It's not man-made. And this law is that the things we do matter and that we are given by the universe the ability to make choices. And this is a beautiful, wonderful thing that we want to grab hold of and keep close to our heart. And so every little decision is going to affect those around us, all of life, really, not just people. It's going to affect nature, it's going to affect plants and animals. So it all does matter. But the most crucial and relatable aspect of it is that we're humans and
Yeah.
we have other humans around us, and that's the ball game that we're playing in. That's the game that we're dealing in. And if we go out into the world and we make choices that are just submitting to the will of others, that are just going along with programs that are suspicious, then we're actually feeding into terrible outcomes. Whereas if we look at things for ourselves and do what you guys are talking about, look at all these most difficult aspects of our relationships and rethink them and rediscover them, then it allows us to work towards a world with more freedom where humans can relate in a better way. And it might not be in our lifetime, and that's not the point. The point is that we work on principle. So
Yeah.
that's kind of me taking everything you guys said and trying to push
Yeah.
it back into this ball of teaching natural law and getting out there with every decision you make and making it important. But I want to give you each an opportunity to talk about where you're going with dissolving the divide in the future and your own personal journey. What can people do? Derek, why don't you go up next?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, just real quick, because I hear what Jeff Hammond is saying over there. And yeah, I've gone through the ringer of thought processes and just like getting, having anger and righteous indignation beyond like what I thought was even possible within myself, of just thinking about how, yeah, it's like people creating the slave reality that we live in based off of choices and this and that, and how the fuck can we just like shake these people and wake these people and did I have too much yang up in my thing with that kind of thought process? I don't know, but I realized that it just wasn't the best thing for my health, and it wasn't something that I could, I'm not going to cavalier and people are just gonna kind of laugh at me sometimes or whatever, like which was kind of the case. I've gone through the trial and errors of all different ways and approaches of trying to reach people, and outside of just what I've done through my music mixes and having that as a medium of truthful expression and all that jazz. But I just realized I was like really hit, or more missed than hit, when it comes to like personal interactions or even things online sometimes. And yeah, just I don't, sometimes I don't know, we don't have all the answers. Here's the thing, like but as far as what we see, this, Leslie and I, what we're doing is really great. I've learned so much from so many of our like 40 plus guests that we've had. I really love showcasing some of their works in the introduction type of thing, and just trying to highlight their specialty or what they're really passionate about. To as far as like under our framework, and we have overarching, we want to have people really. I want to bring the best out of people. That's all I want to do. Whether it be Mr. Joe Blow six pack who's half awake or half dead or whatever, like to the person that's, on the spiritual path that knows more than I do. We can still appeal to anyone on this earth. As far as I'm concerned, there's still so much we can learn from all types of people. So,
Mm-hmm.
Leslie, yeah,
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think that there's theoretically the possibility of changing this world in a massive way simply through a change in consciousness. And ultimately that is what we're talking about, is our consciousness. And in the process of our, changing our consciousness really is going to involve this deep self-work and compassion and care, and these the pillars of non-aggression and self-defense, right? That when you value yourself and you value the world and you care enough, right, that you will act in such a way that demonstrates that care, which sometimes is going to mean saying some hard no's and speaking out and not being afraid of conflict at the same time, right? So it's not like we're saying y'all need to like always pacify. We're not talking about pacifying people. We're talking about standing in truth and self-knowledge and understanding right and wrong, and being able to solve conflicts through mature dialogue with an open mind, and ultimately recognize that you don't want to be part of wrongdoing. You don't want to be part of intentional harming. And I think where our show is going is like, it's really, we'll see. And we're just really open to people coming on. Like, we'd love to have some people who have a passion around a particular topic and want to dialogue with us about it. Reach out to us. And we have some interesting, we got some interesting guests on the queue waiting to for our recording. So show up. Derek gets them out like every week, pretty much.
Yeah, and Derek, you're amazing with the amount of work you've been putting out and the live streams and the music. If people haven't checked out Awaken Your Mind, that's his Odyssey channel, and I think you still got it on YouTube too, but I know you primarily use Odyssey because YouTube can be a real pain in so many ways. We all understand that. But, just like dealing with the public, it's not easy to get this work out. And but that's not going to stop us. So we're going to take this warrior mentality and keep looking for ways to not be fragmented, to not be divided, to dissolve these separations between us and the people we're trying to reach, and really just investing time and energy purposefully into taking on these problems and trying to find whatever it's going to take to start to recognize natural law and help other people to recognize it from their own point of view, because we are all looking at it from different perspectives, and like I said, we're all getting hit with many arrows of problems. So it's not easy. We're not saying it is, but we're encouraging you to work in whatever direction you can, but focusing on the central principles of natural law as the guiding principles, and then learning to teach and learn in that realm. And that will help, I hope, with the focus of people watching. So
Yeah.
I'm done for tonight. I'm about ready to close up, but I want to leave you guys an opening to advertise whatever you want, or final statements.
There's a question: how can I get in touch? Somebody has a project. What's the best way
For
someone to get in touch with us? I think, yeah. Do you want to share?
Channel, there's some link trees. There's my
I'll see
email in that.
Yeah. So depending on, I have a website, alivethrive.life, and there is an option there to send me an email. So I will get an email if you go to my website and contact me there. Derek and I, are on Facebook, so you could always Facebook message us. What
Yeah,
else?
I'm gonna say something real quick because I got so
I
much
did
love and
put
respect for you guys.
Derek's Linktree in the comments, and I'm also putting AliveThrive.life in the comments as
Cheers. Yeah,
well.
thank you.
Sorry to
I've
interrupt you.
stayed with you, Chris, before he moved into Leslie's recently, for a couple times now. Yeah, I've known you guys more than anyone else really in the freedom community. And I was literally trying to just put my knowledge into action. I was literally trying to move up there and be more in connects with you and your community over there so we can actually get the ball rolling on the physical domain and really build some things. And calls to action, what I see is just we, there's the non-compliance side of pulling ourselves out, extracting ourselves out of all the formulas of divide and conquer and all that shit, but at the same time implementing these hermetic principles into the reality field. Are we the master builders of ourselves first and foremost to create that foundation in the physical domain type of thing, right? So I love what Rodney's doing with his Rodney Goodwin, by the way. He's been a frequent guest on our show. He's got a restaurant. I was trying to do something like that, some off-grid type of thing where it could be more of a sanctuary, if you will, for just like good quality food, good vibes, and yeah, just like having like an open mic session or like having documentaries run 24/7 on, in this specific rooms or something like that. Like there's so many different ways we can, cut into angles into society and slash away at these cords of entanglement that are comprised this fucking Gordian knot that we have to really just use that sword of the justice card and have that that true guided arrow of truth to see and slash through these things. But yeah, as far as my works, awaken your mind, awaken YA mind, one word. That's been my DJ moniker for I've been mixing, truth infused, soundtracks of awakening type of music, mostly hip hop, for over a dozen years. We got the One Great Work Warriors with Chris Jansen. I'm on Dissolving the Divide, obviously, and I've just been trying to branch out in a lot of different ways and having my mediums of expression shine through what I've been activated upon within myself and through so much knowledge that I've learned and tried to integrate within myself and weed out all the inconsistencies and distortions that have been plaguing humanity for far too fucking long. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic. Right. And we'll be back next week. Derek will join me with One Great Work Warriors. We got an awesome topic coming up, and I think we'll be displaying that next week if all goes as planned. And, another wonderful group. And it's amazing. I think you guys are a prime example of proving and showing that we can self organize, connect with somebody else who you think will make a good show and follow through. You guys work as a team. Leslie's got her perspective and angle and ways of bringing up topics, and Derek's back there doing the technical work on the editing end. And, that's what we do on the Warriors. We all chip in. We got Brandon, our master technician, and then we're all chipping in slides and ideas. And Crip Rick's always popping in with good thoughts because he's been thinking. Yeah, please check out his show on revolution.radio, Studio A on Mondays, 3 p.m. And that's another thing, 3 p.m. Pacific. I think that'd be 5 p.m. Central. And we can shout out each other's work and share each other's stuff. It's really hard to promote yourself when you're talking about natural law, freedom, and truth because you get shadow banned, shadow blocked, and blah, 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 blah. And people lose interest because their eyes glaze over because the bright light is too shiny. But that ain't gonna stop us from shining. So
Yeah,
thanks so much.
we got Libercast in the house
Yeah,
and willkeller.com. We got some other
yeah.
Sarah.
Will Keller was on last night with his spirituality presentation, which is fantastic. You guys need to check it out. You can check out freedomundernaturallaw.com. Our friends at seedtruth.com, Cubbyhole. It just goes on. And we've all hooked up and integrated and found
Mhm.
commonalities in the way we talk about each other. So
Yeah. Sarah Cross has got
Sarah
some
Cross,
stuff out there, and we've got a
Jeffrey Hammond,
collaboration.
you know, he's starting his own thing. He came on my show and he popped in today with some really beautiful statements. My man Colby working with me on different things behind the scene. So,
It's on
you
me,
know,
folks.
keep up the good work, everybody. Encourage others, and we'll encourage one another and motivate ourselves to keep fighting this
Yeah.
difficult battle of truth.
Many hands make small work.
Word, yeah. In respects to the girls' club with Sarah Cross, that's a cool
Yeah.
collaboration, y'all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ladies'
Cross, yeah.
perspective. That's we
Yeah.
well need that in this world. So thanks again so much, guys. Big virtual hug. I
Yeah.
appreciate all who came and commented and are giving this stuff some thought. Share it, subscribe, and do get out there and do this work. Be a warrior.
Much love from France, y'all. I miss y'all.
Miss you.
Wait till you come back, Derek.
Oh,
Until
no.
then, everybody have a great night, and we'll be back next week with End Evil. Evil's the destruction of freedom.
Bye, everybody.
Later on, guys. Thanks for coming.
Ultimately, it's up to you.